have a meeting.
Turn on my mic so that way Janet can hear
You
me.
have Pat.
Okay, what?
Turn on my mic so you can hear me.
Barely.
There's three.
Just with your voice.
There's two voting members. Let me double check.
Oh,
It's not a voting.
We're not voting.
We're not voting.
So you
today.
can
Work
hear me?
session.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it probably would be a problem if
If we're voting.
if we were in a regular meeting. I don't think this would technically be a quorum.
And we're not violating sunshine because it's public.
Great. So.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
So, you want to do a roll call, Melanie?
Okay, Carl Kincaid,
Present.
Brian Hill.
Here.
And Stephanie's not here yet, and neither is Scott or Connie.
All right, so we'll open up, the minutes, if the two of you finally there on this.
We're good. I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Let's go on down then to the December financial statement. And I will tell you that I think some things we need to look at now, that this is the half of the year. This statement is of the end of December. So I think now that it's time for us to kind of look and see where we are.
Yep.
So I think the first thing maybe that might be important to you to look at is down at the bottom on page 1, our property taxes. Wait a minute, maybe this is somebody coming. No, okay.
Oh, it's just him.
Just him. Okay. Well, he's here to keep the rowdy people down. Okay. The property taxes, you can see at the bottom, we estimated those at $556,642. Taken in year to date, and that is as of the end, like I said, this one is as of the end of December. We've taken in $317,802, which that is 57.09% of what the budget of what we're hoping to take in. So we've taken in 57%. We've actually got 2 more months, because at the end of February, those are turned over to delinquent, over to the county delinquent, whatever. So we have 2 more months. Now I asked Melody, even though this is the end of December, could she tell me what we had taken in January, what has been deposited, but you're not ready to show the end. Anyway, in January she deposited another $54,602. That brings us up at the end of January to $372,404. So to make budget of $556,642, we need in February to take in $184,238 to make budget.
So I have a question. So
Okay.
is that signs that we have a greater delinquency than usual? Because, I mean, I'm assuming the 556 was pretty forecasted.
Because I was asked to raise it, council
What
member.
projected figures, remember?
I thought that that was on the sales.
It's on the tax bit.
Huh?
I think it's on this
It's
one.
on all the local taxes.
Okay, so I thought it was just on the sales tax.
Okay, but historically, I asked her, I said, what have we historically collected in February, like last year? Last year, we collected $135,000 in February. So,
Is this for the debt?
it will be, I'm just saying, if it falls in line like we think, we will be probably around $50,000 short in the budget here. So, but we just gotta watch it. Then after, like I said, we've got 1 more month to collect. And if it doesn't come in where we need it to come in to make this number, then it goes over to delinquent. So I don't care if you come in and pay after that, it's not gonna go in this number. All right, that's one that we're gonna be watching. Excuse me. Property taxes delinquent, we're looking pretty good on those. We estimated $18,000. We have collected almost 91% of that budget. So that's one I think we'll be okay there. Now, delinquent taxes are collected right on through the end. We can count those every month, right? When we get delinquent taxes from March on. Okay. So we shouldn't be hopefully we'll even go over that, maybe we won't be, so that's not one I'm really. Payments in lieu of property tax, I asked her what that was, that's gas and electric. We're over, by the end of December, anything that we're over 50% on, you know, we're doing pretty good. We're tracking it, we're doing okay. Local option sales tax, we projected $927,000. As of the end of December, we have collected $334,000, you can see that, $718, we've collected that. In January, we collected, that will show up, this will show up in the next report, but right now, I just asked her to tell me what we've collected in January. She looked at, said, in January, we collected $67,917. Now that brought us up to $402,634. Estimated by the end of June, and we're just estimating it,
We looked at last year's figures.
we did, but we looked also at kind of what she's collecting each month too. Estimated by the end of June, we should have at least $810,634.
Which is what is a deficit?
We might be short $116,366. But now, keep in mind, this is an estimation. We've got the new Dollar General store to know.
Yep.
I do know this, I know that some of our, stores that have been down in their home building packages. I
And
know
then we had
that.
that tax-free holiday.
We have the
whatever
tax-free
it's called.
holiday.
Yeah.
If maybe the governor.
The snowstorm was a week of people not going to.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
talked to some of the business owners on Main Street in Dixon, and it
I bet it did hurt them.
We were pretty dead, happy.
Yeah.
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 That's a week in the week, so.
So,
And we haven't, you know, we've been told that the state's gonna reimburse us on our sales tax, but I don't know when that'll be.
and we don't know how much,
No.
no.
Right.
Just based on.
If and when.
Yeah,
If
that's
and
correct.
when. Just based on what we're looking at right now, if we keep on going the track that we're on right now, by the end of June, we might be short $116,000. That's just based on what we're looking at now. Maybe we'll have a big, huge, I don't know, Memorial Day, maybe there'll be something that happens,
Yeah.
but just, all we can do is base it on the historical.
Well, no, but look, I mean, it's more than that, because if you combine a roughly 50 plus the 116, then you're looking at a roughly.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about, I'm just looking at the line item.
I'm just
yeah.
looking at total deficit
Yeah,
here.
total deficit, I've got that on the back, that's $166,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just
If-
based on those
just
projected
those
numbers,
two.
and I believe we were wanting to, at the time, wanting to raise taxes to accommodate that, another 150 or so worth of revenue. So even still, that would have been a little short.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Okay, then the next thing we looked at was the business taxes, because we're we've only about 15% of our budget. Melody, you want to tell us about those, the business taxes, how they come in?
Yeah, business taxes come in, well, they come in every month, but they're in classifications, like you've got class 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the class 4 paying period is the last quarter of the fiscal year. And that's when your contractors and people like Brian have to pay. And so we get a bigger amount in that quarter.
Okay. So is that not alarming then, that 16%?
Yeah, a little.
I think 42,000 is a lot of it.
So my point though is right now, only having collected 6 and we're projecting 42,000, so it's 16%. What would you have considered a more healthy number percentage, like 20%, 25%?
50% at least.
Oh, really? On the, okay.
And you remember, these are within, under the local, in the budget, under the local taxes, so.
You should call them and tell them to pay the taxes.
I know, one thing, yeah.
That's true.
Okay, then we're going down, the next thing I looked at was state sales tax. We budgeted, now, state sales tax, this was a learning thing for me too, I really enjoyed meeting with her today. State sales tax is, sales tax that is based on all the tax money, understand, collected all over the state. Memphis, Chattanooga, wherever, and then the state takes all that sales tax, and we get a portion per person of that sales tax. That is why the census is so important to us. That's how, that determines the money
Several
we get.
of these state taxes are based upon,
Yeah.
because, you know, we
All the
pay,
states, yeah.
Yeah, State Street Aid is, isn't it?
when,
Yeah.
I think.
when
Yeah.
you've got your, you know, your 9.75
Yeah,
sales tax, a portion of that's going to the state, and that's the number we're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Across the state, and they per capita.
But really, we don't have any control. All we can do is look historically what we've got. We have no control over that.
No. The only thing I've ever seen a municipality do, and it happens, like I saw Spring Hill's doing it right now, is you can do a special census. It's expensive,
Yeah,
but, you know, if you feel like your population's increasing so much that you want those extra state tax
Right.
dollars, you don't want to wait 10 years for the
Yeah.
new number, you could, you know, do that, but you need a pretty significant change in your population
Yeah.
for that to pay for itself.
So, well, with it being said, one of the ways, I mean, we have a lot of pending developments right now. It might, I don't know, depending on how many developments, I haven't looked recently, but all the Bill 70 Church, all the things coming up, it might be worth looking at after all that's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of years now.
Yeah.
A common one is about the midpoint, so that'd be 2025, 2026,
Yeah.
is when a lot of because you don't want to do it 2 or 3 times, it's really
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
I started saying, because we've looked at that years
Yeah.
ago, very expensive to do.
But
You
it's
gotta make
going to happen
sure.
in 2030, you know, you
Yeah,
know
right,
that, so.
right. So you gotta make sure that when you spend that much money, are you gonna get it, is it
I
worthwhile?
guess we'll just have to see how much has been built in by 2020
Yes, we will,
and sold.
yeah. Okay, but anyway, the state sales tax was projected at we will see, $433,783. We have, collected 52.78 of that.
We'll probably be okay.
We'll probably be okay in that, because what we gotta do is keep the people in Chattanooga, Nashville, Memphis, not in buying.
Yeah.
That's what we've got to do, that's our controllable, that's our only controllable. All right, okay, then gross receipts, TVA, that kind of bothered me, but she says that TVA pays, quarterly,
Yes.
but still, that business tax kind of bothers me, but it was based on last year's, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay.
And business tax too, if you have businesses that are not doing well, that's one of those things that just doesn't get paid,
Yeah.
they just don't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Those are the line items that jumped out at me.
I guess it'll probably come up, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask now, so we can be thinking about it. The court costs,
That's what I was saying.
I know a lot of that's delayed. It's just,
Right.
you know, it's very little right on. Is that for all of December, or has that not processed?
Yeah, that's for all of
Okay.
December.
That is processed.
Yeah.
So why is that so low?
Less people committing crimes?
I mean, I guess that's a good,
Well,
good thing.
they gotta pay too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris's fault.
We may be arresting people,
So let's send Chris out, where's my money? Where's my money?
but people may not be paying.
And we're in the middle of a transition to the new court cost structure, and candidly, I'll tell y'all this, and I'll say it again on Tuesday, you're probably not gonna see the full benefits of that until next fiscal year. It's just, because of the delay, I mean, they're still trying to finish implementing it because there's so many costs that the county charges that we don't. So imagine a 400-page Excel, you know, on all the different costs and trying to import it into our software. The local government's luckily helping us out a lot with that, but that's a lot of work. And so not everybody's been paying the higher cost because we need them to pay something, right? But it's getting implemented, and we're already halfway through this fiscal year. So just keep that in mind. That wasn't going to be a magic fix immediately. I do think it will make a substantive impact change next fiscal year. So just FYI.
Or is there anything else that stands out at any of you that you need to, I asked on the grants here, we're doing, we're 122%, we're way over what we estimated, but Melody said the police got a grant or something, and so you were able to, when you deposited that made that line item go up.
Anytime we key it in, it keys in under grant, so.
Okay.
I know this came up, so I wanted to add this at this point. From everything I could find and the people I talked to, the way grants work, the interest on it is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
You have to account for the money they gave you.
Okay.
What happens after it, rock and roll, is the long and short of it. So if you get $1 million, you've got to be able to show through that process that you went receipts or million, or matching or whatever it was,
Right.
right? If you got $40,000 in interest off that million, that doesn't have to go to the grant, because the
Okay.
grant didn't call for $1,040,000. It called for $1 million.
Yeah.
Now, again, in that apocalyptic scenario of the pool collapsing and then,
Right.
the Tennessee sinks into a black hole, we would technically have to come up with that million if we lost it, but that's just not, I mean, if that happened, everything's done. So,
Yeah.
and I did look at state law, and that is one of the state authorized investment pools. There's very few actually by state law. You can go get CDs at banks, or.
I believe it's safer than a bank.
Honestly, in a lot of ways. Or the pool is like one of four things, but you can actually invest in.
Did you see how much we were allowed to invest in as far as our?
So that's actually my final point. I have started drafting, I don't have a draft for you tonight. I have started drafting, because I've done it elsewhere, an investment policy to bring you Tuesday. I don't think y'all will be voting on it on Tuesday. It's just more, hey, let's talk about it. Because it authorizes Melody to invest the funds while balancing it with needing to meet the cash flow demands of the town. I mean, that's your balance. But it outlines what gets to be invested, and we can put limits on that. The council can. So I think that's just a discussion point, and then Jeff and Melody and I can finalize it and bring it back in, March. We're already flying through the year.
Does the state or Fed put any limits on how much?
No, they tell you where you can invest it, one.
But they don't say how much. Oh,
No.
okay.
Now, you don't want to
Sure.
put everything but $10,000 in there, you're going to have a cash flow problem. But I
Yeah.
think Melody can look at, as she does,
Yeah.
the typical flow and put it in, take it out, kind of.
So we can keep a good, healthy liquid balance and do
Yeah.
something with it.
I'm attached to this financial report, it's the December, just look at it, of what the investment.
Nice.
Effectively, all this does is give Melody the authority to invest the money in state-authorized funds. Is really, and then if y'all want to, if the council again wants to put a maximum of 70% of what's in the checking account, y'all can pick that number. I lean towards let the financial officer kind of have that and report to you every month. I think that's better than putting a hard line. But it's just a policy that, again, if y'all need to go back and revisit and say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with X, then you can address it. But this at least, I think there were some questions about it. This at least makes it very clear what Melody can do, which she's already been doing. It's just codifying it and giving the oversight I think y'all were looking for. So I'll bring that to you on Tuesday. I'm about halfway done with it.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's my additional 2 points to the financial report.
It's not much, but I'm happy to see the rural fire up and library up. That's good.
We're real proud of our library, I'm telling you. Cindy is doing such a good, she's doing a great job. She really is. Now, I'm looking at here on revenues, Melody, we budgeted $132,000 in state street fund, state capital. And we're at 52 point, we're almost 53% of that already. So we're doing good in that, with that.
I will also note for the council, I don't think it's going to get out of committee, but there is a bill right now pending that eliminates the grocery tax for the state.
Period?
Period. One side of the argument is, why are we taxing food? The other side of the argument is, that's a source of local government funding. It's just going to be shifted elsewhere. You're not actually going to save money. Who knows? But I'm just saying, there are probably, I could go through about 30 pending bills right now that scare me. 25 of them won't make it out. A couple will, and we'll have to deal with it, but that is one that's got a lot of debate going on right now. It's being pushed by the larger jurisdictions because they'll make up for it in sales tax and property tax. There's an ethical thing to them of taxing food. I get that, that's not an unreasonable position, but it logistically could be very difficult.
I mean, for a town our size, well, and Kroger,
Barnes
Publix,
is in the same boat.
Walmart, anywhere.
So,
Like I said, you would have to make up for it elsewhere.
Uh-huh.
I understand their conviction standpoint. I get it.
yeah. So,
You would have to make up
you
for it.
hook around on the pending bill, there's some interesting stuff out there like that.
Wow.
So.
And also attached, we got a letter from Jason Mohar, the comptroller. Controller, the treasurer, we have reviewed the annual financial report on Town of White Bluff for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023, as audited by John R. Poole, certified public accountant. As a result, this report has been filed as part of the public records of the state of Tennessee. You need, you can contact this office, so,
And once he audits us, and then once the audit, then he has to turn it into the state, and they have to look at it. And, if the state, especially if like they would go over budget, or they would put that in this letter, for us, they noticed that we went over budget, and we need, to not do that.
Sure.
We need to amend it, and that's why we amended it.
That's why we amended it.
That's from happening.
Okay. So anything else on that? Discuss authorizing a comprehensive compensation plan review prior to the 2024-25 budget. Jeff, you've talked to, Fred?
Yes. So at last month's meeting, there was some discussion about salaries and that kind of thing, and we had some discussion to just look at it comprehensively across the board. And we've had some conversation with Fred Biddle, our compensation consultant, and he can allocate the time to do that review before the budget. So all I would be looking for Tuesday night is just if you all want to proceed with that.
Just a motion.
Yep.
Okay. Discuss on second and final reading as long as adjoining single owner rezoning. I think you all, unless it's something you want to really discuss on this, you know exactly what it was. It's that one block over there, we talked about it at length. So I'm not gonna read all this.
It is contingent on them combining all of those parcels into one. That's in the ordinance, so it's ready for y'all to have a public hearing and a second vote.
Okay. So any discussion on that? Discuss on second and final reading an amended ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance, Article 3, Section 3.090, by adopting traffic impact guides by reference.
So Mayor, this back to PC, and we're now at the second reading, and again, the big change was making any annexation or rezoning application subject to a traffic assessment of 5 acres or more, didn't matter what road it was on. So that'll be a traffic assessment or traffic impact study, depending on, again, annexation, rezonings, traffic assessments, traffic study lights. Then where we require traffic studies, site plans, plats, things like that, we have our guidelines. So it's ready for, again, that'll have a public hearing, but second reading as well. It's ready to go.
Any questions, any discussion? Discuss on first reading an ordinance to repeal and replace Article 6, provisions governing plan unit development districts in its entirety, and to repeal and replace any ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Mayor, I've been, since the meeting started, I've been texting back and forth with Amanda she too is ill. She has asked if it's her ordinance. She has asked if she could go over that with the council on Tuesday night.
Okay.
I would say to you, we've talked about having Amanda on board allows us to dig deep into things that we just didn't have the time to do before. This is a big one. We've worked on this off and on for a year or longer, and being able to use some of the more recent HUD developments that we've had has allowed us to then look at different scenarios and put things together. Very comprehensive plan. That's why we sent it out to you early, but we will go over that in detail on Tuesday if that's the will of the board.
And I'll just add, PC recommended it.
Yes.
I've reviewed it. I think it's much better than what we currently have. And the biggest things to take out of this, and I know Amanda's going to go, she goes into detail with you, but I'm going to hit the highlight. It requires a master plan. It's kind of like a booklet you put together that if we all got hit by a bus, everybody who replaced us knows that's what needs to happen. Because that's the difference with the PUD. It's not just the zoning, you're tying the plans with the zoning, and it goes with the land forever unless someone asks for a change. So it could be the plans for a long time. If it doesn't expire. And it talks about residential and commercial and industrial and live work and how you can combine all this together, which we already kind of had with PUD, but those landscaping requirements y'all put in, it incorporates those really well. We've updated the definitions, and it really goes through, the last thing I'll point out is the process. There's preliminary concept meetings with staff that I think are really important, pre-application conferences, neighborhood meetings where they have to give notice to everyone around the PUD and have a neighborhood meeting. Maybe interesting ideas come from it. You kind of learn people for it, against it. And then once all that has happened, it really starts to see the traditional PUD process of coming before the Planning Commission and coming before this body. So I think it was very much so cleaned up in the procedure where we had holes in our current regulations that filled them. Nothing's ever perfect. Nothing's going to cover every eventuality, but this is a big step that I think I would encourage y'all to pass on Tuesday night, even after you hear what Amanda says, and read it and kind of get into the nitty-gritty and ask us any questions you have, because this is a zoning ordinance change through reading public hearing.
I've had the opportunity to speak in length with Amanda already about this. Very encouraging what I heard come out of it. Sounds like it cleaned up a lot of problems that we've learned. A lot of lessons learned are in this. It seems like it gave, frankly, PC and us a lot more power in the process. That's my 2 cents. And it does, the one question I had, which of course it does still connect with our traffic study.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All good things. I haven't found anything alarming.
Okay. Any discussion?
It's a long read.
Okay, number 6. Discuss amending a resolution of the Town of White Bluff, Tennessee to add notice requirements to zoning and rezoning requests regarding signage.
Mayor, this is the one that we also discussed last month. There was some discussion about changing the signage that we put out as part of a annexation or a rezoning. And so this is the ordinance as it is today, the one that's in your packet. And then we're just looking for clarification from the board on what you want.
Well, and just a resolution, because that's all that was needed for this. We didn't make it an ordinance. But I just want to highlight for y'all, just because, staff has to follow your directive. And, talking to Jeff and looking at some of this, staff has been following it, but I think, of course, there's concern about, is that enough, right? I think that's where a lot of this, especially Councilman Glover, has brought to our attention, hey, maybe we need to do more, right? So the way it stands right now, and this is rezonings, zonings, annexations, a sign goes out 5 days before the Planning Commission considers it, and that sign stays out. It's the same sign. It's not electronic, you can't change it. And so in this resolution, certain things were required to be on the sign, including, the town's website, phone number, that, quote, "This property is being considered for rezoning, the current zoning designation, if it's not an annexation, because that doesn't have a zoning designation, and the requested zoning designation." So you know what it is, you know what they're asking for, here's our website, here's our phone number. If this body is looking for more, just help us understand what are those parameters, and we can draft a new resolution.
Bottom bullet point on the first page, the sign shall be of an appropriate size as determined by town staff, and that seems to be the crux of the problem, is the size of the sign. So one change could be that you all just tell us what size the sign is.
Since I brought this up, I would like to spearhead this, and I'd like to put it off till next month, because I've gained some information from county that I'm going to discuss with the county commissioner and find out what their thoughts on it are. But for the most part, the sign needs to be bigger because of the lettering needs to be bigger. I've heard the one, where is it, next, down here, that's up for rezoning. Still, people can't see it when they drive by, it's just.
I actually replaced it the other day because it had fallen over, so I restuck it.
Let me ask you a question that you can kind of look at before we go to this. In my opinion, if the signage is, if the lettering is too small, and me and Jeff, I think, have discussed this a little bit, I'd like to know if you think that it's that important to show we may have to, I don't know, but the current zoning and the zoning that it's going to be considered for, I almost think go bigger letters and say this property is up for rezoning or annexation, whatever the case may be. Please contact us at this phone number or this, because I think, to me, if you're going by and you see that and you're concerned with that piece of property in that area, you're going to make that phone call and be like, okay, what is it you guys are trying to do? Whereas there's a lot of people, in my opinion, where it's talking about what zone it is and what zone it is, they don't even understand really what that all means.
Right.
I don't know that it's even necessary to put that as long as you can see, hey, this is up for rezoning, this is the phone number you call to ask any questions that you might have. That way, if you're an elderly person, you know to call that number, because something so you can have that piece of property,
Right.
and maybe they could explain it better.
My inclination is, I really liked what I observed in South Carolina personally. I would love to see that at work. It was very simple. It was efficient in being able to be reused. It was a large metal sign that was bolted to one of those metal posts. You got to have like one of whatever to slam it in the ground, so that way you're not having stealing and theft and wind issues. The sign was large, but very simple. Like you said, it was just, this property is up for rezoning and or annexation. Contact here for more information. So that way it doesn't matter what property we're sticking on, it works, it's large, it ain't going anywhere, and then we don't have to replace them all the time. That's my 2 cents, and I'll leave it.
Well, another thing I would like to see in here is something to the effect of notifying the person who's requesting the change, notifying the adjoining property owners of what's going on.
But isn't that coming up in one of the PUD things or something? I remember talking about that plan commission that.
It is,
What's for PUD?
so the PUDs, but
Yeah.
that's only covering PUDs, but it doesn't
Okay,
cover
okay.
other rezonings or annexations. So
Okay.
it is going to cover a swath of that, yes. There is a notice, kind of what you're talking about, the notice requirement, and the county's actually going through some notice changes as well. So I would encourage, reach out to me so we can talk about, because really it's all about parameters, and I think if we can craft something for the council's consideration, that'll be more streamlined, if you will. The other 2 things I want to just have y'all be thinking about, and I haven't talked to Jeff about the first one, flipping it on to the developer rather than staff. I think that's one thing to think about. Now, you lose a little control, and you gotta police them, so are you making less work? I don't know. I think it's worthy of discussion. The second one is, especially if it's gonna stay with town staff, but really under any scenario, I don't have the current application fees. I think those need to be re-examined, given how much time and work has to go into annexations and rezonings. I think it's like $100 or something right now.
It's minimal.
I think it needs to be like $250, or, something much more. You can't just charge whatever. It has to be based upon the work that goes into it, but I mean, between everybody that works on those, that's absolutely justifiable. So I would think about that as to go with whatever new provisions come out.
Could we, so let's say, playing devil's advocate, I get my way on this. And then we go with a nice bougie metal sign, all the things. Have basically like a fee, like in the valley, we charge like a registration fee as a part of that of going in. So, but technically we control the signs and we are still placing them, but we're charging them because we're having to do that.
Oh, sure. I'm saying either scenario. I think you should re-examine the fee, but particularly if you're going to keep it on staff, that's more work.
And then, as far as we're concerned, I'll talk my business part of it, I don't see that as a major inconvenience. I mean, you pay all kind of fees anyway. I don't see me paying for a sign if I'm going to in this climate, if I want to rezone something, I'll be happy to pay for a sign, because so I don't think we get much kickback.
My thought is that even if we had a warehouse full of a couple of signs that we're reusing over and over again, at least the fee would pay for the labor and the effort to have to go and do it, even if we're reusing the same sign.
Yeah. As far as the notification of the property owners that are next, I don't have issue with that either. My only concern with that is that we would have to do that in a way to where someone couldn't say, well, I didn't get the notification, and hold up.
Trust me, we've been through that, and there's no way to do that other than putting it on the developer. And they have to sign an affidavit saying they did it.
I got you.
So there's both protections and protocols and, candidly, best efforts.
So you can send like a certified letter to that neighbor?
Typically, they're actually cards. There's right there, it's, hey, I'm at this address, I'm asking for this, just letting you know type thing. We have sort of a set of things that have to go on the notification that we're working on for the county, but yeah, it's both, you're certifying that you do it, and you gotta go do it. It's a little bit of extra work on the applicant, again, to relieve town or county staff in that situation, but it would be here too.
We don't have issue with that either. I can't imagine that anybody, that's not that, it's part of the process. It's along with all the other stuff that we've already got to do. We cater to a lot of different departments already, so I don't see that as outside the law.
Well, if you want to reach out, we can talk about those aspects.
Your idea about putting it on the developer, that was also something I was working on too.
Good. Well, I guess if that's kind of, I know this was your agenda item, if you want to, we can take it off. And
Yeah, I'd like to take off, put it on next month. I hadn't been here part of the month, and I had to check this twice.
Some traveling.
All I can say is, don't rent budget center card. Don't have it. They left me at Love Field. I had to get an Uber, take me to DFW Airport to get a car, to drive, to walk in. I got in bed at 4 a.m.
So we will discuss that, we'll put that on our agenda later. You tell us.
For March.
Okay. And you said you want to talk to a county commissioner, how they're doing their signs or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, y'all know, I'm sure y'all know Mitch Harden.
Yeah.
He is he's not a resident of White Bluff, but just over.
Yeah.
He's now a county commissioner,
Yeah.
if nobody was aware of that either.
Yes, I heard that. Okay, discuss requiring sprinkler systems for any construction involving shared walls. That's yours?
Yep, that's mine. So, the argument I was trying to, and after a conversation with admittedly your partner the other day, education is always, a different perspective is always important. I still like the shared wall consistency, but I would also add more to that. just for different scenarios. So obviously, sprinkler systems, I think, would assist our fire department, safety of anybody who's sharing a wall with somebody, because my logic is, why should my business and or residence burn down because my neighbor's an idiot type thing? And I think that would, help our town in the long run, as well as some other things. So in my brain, this wouldn't go for, if you're going to build a commercial development and it's a giant building of whatever, but it's just yours, it's a standalone building. If this doesn't, it wouldn't trigger this. The whole trigger for me is the shared wall. That's where I was trying to stay consistent on if there's a shared wall. So now it would capture mixed use if there were shared walls in between it. So if this would be a commercial top, residential on bottom, that would be that element. However, there is, what I learned the other night was that there's a distinct difference in types and for the town to try to provide direction to the developer on what types of sprinkler systems we would require. Because residential sprinkler systems are one level and one type of burden, whereas those sprinkler systems get very bougie and have to be tied into the phone line and all kinds of things. So having learned that, I think it would be most adequate if we were to pass this law would be to have a square footage requirement. Because I kind of talked it out on if there was an occupancy, kind of like a fire code type thing. The difficulty with that is what happens if that building changes what it's going to be over the next several years, and now the occupancy changes. So that's difficult, because then that could change over 10 years. So I think square footage would be the most consistent, is if it's over a certain amount of square footage, which frankly I would need some input on what we think would be adequate square footage. But I think that would be better to say, hey, if you're over X amount of square footage, you've got to go with a nicer system that's tied into the phone line, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're under a certain square footage, you can go with if you're just building a duplex, put it in a residential system, it's fine.
All right, let me ask you this question. And this is something we might need to dig into. So I talked to Tennessee Kentucky Fire. The residential systems are relatively inexpensive. So if you just want to do a duplex, each duplex would have its own little system off its own little water meter. It's not that much expense. Probably something a builder could eat, as far as I'm concerned. The interesting part gets when you get into what we're fixing to get in more and more of is the C2 zoning. Because on the C2 zoning, you're on commercial at the bottom, residential at the top. Prime examples that we're going to try to do eventually if we get this building bought out here and go with a commercial downstairs and a large condo upstairs. The concern is and I'm not sure who governs this, but if you have to put a commercial system in that C2 building to sprinkle that residential area on top, I know, and I'll get some more information before Tuesday. I know a builder that tried to do and I found this out later on, he was going to do a commercial downstairs in Dixon with a residential apartment upstairs. It was $100,000.
Right, I heard about that.
Because it was a commercial system. So what it did, it killed that project. And so, because he couldn't afford, and the reason he couldn't afford it was a small footprint. So to drop $100,000 into a sprinkler system on a small, build, it killed his budget, and he couldn't do it, so he had to walk away.
Yeah, I believe the build was a little over $200,000, and the sprinkler system was $100,000.
Exactly.
It made no sense.
And so I don't want to do something to us that's going to kill our C2 developments, because I do.
That's why I thought the square footage might be the fix for that, because of that specific
So
scenario.
you're saying if you built like a dollar store size store with condos on top, you would hit that requirement to have to. And I think on the bigger builds you might be okay, because you're a $1 million building, $100,000 on $1 million building it's substantial, but it's not a deal breaker.
So if you're building a mixed use where it's probably just going to be like an office space on the bottom and maybe one or two little tiny condos on the top, not very much square footage, it would be fine to do residential. So that's why I thought the more consistent path would be find that square footage that's fair to where once you cross over that threshold, there's enough meat in the deal that could carry that burden. But that way you're not killing your smaller at the same time, but also at the same time achieving the goal of the fire safety.
I do like the safety feature of it. But I also have to look at, from a builder's point of view, because that's some of my constituents, they're going to kill me if it kills a bunch of deals because they can't afford to put this sprinkler system in. Now, like on the duplex we own, it's you got, which this isn't gonna put the fire out, obviously, but you've got smoke detectors that are tied, you know, not only with this side, but this side, they're all tied together, so yours goes off, mine goes off, you know, so I guess I'm gonna have to do some thinking on that to see, you know, do I think it would probably save lives? Yes. But then that other factor I think about too as a renter. All right, let's say that me and you, I'm on one side of the duplex, you're on the other. We've got these sprinkler systems or whatever, you know. If they're not tied together, which I'm assuming they wouldn't be, you would be okay, because if your house caught on fire, it's going to put you out. But I don't want yours, you know, your fire causing my sprinkler system to go off, and now I've got, you know, damage for something that, you know. So I don't know, but I'm going to do some digging between now and then. Do you have any idea what kind of square footage you are?
That's where I was frankly hoping to lean on your expertise there, because again, I'm hoping to achieve a goal without being overburdensome.
Got you. All right, let me do some digging, because it's, I mean,
Well,
it's
let
really,
me give you all just a couple parameters to think about.
that'll help.
And I think this is how this is positioned on the agenda. Y'all need to either decide to direct staff to put something together with some condition, you know, some parameters, or not. I think that's where it starts. We're not going to have something for you to look at on Tuesday.
No.
We're not. I will say, because this has come up actually with, you mentioned Dollar General, you know, we have the International Building Code, Energy Code, Fire Code, all these different things, and they interplay together. And so, for example, for commercial buildings, Jeff, was it 10,000? Anything over 12,000 has to have a sprinkler system. That's why you see a lot of buildings at 12 or less, because a commercial sprinkler system is expensive.
Exactly.
And there's ways to kind of, you know, it's usable space. There's ways they try to get that number down a little bit, but if you're around 12 or less, you're not doing one. And then you don't see a lot right above it. They're going to go way above it and have a sprinkler system. So we already have that. Commercial's at 12. So we would have to change, I can't remember which code it is, if it's fire or building.
International Building Code Fire, the fire.
The fire section?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Because it's funny that each of those kind of have their own, like
Yeah.
the fire code has an energy code or independent codes, and then you have the master building code that has its own fire and energy sections in it. Anyway, it already has that. I know when we passed the building code, we had a specific exemption for single and duplex sprinkler system requirements, because that's actually the baseline of the code.
I think it's called residential, but
Yes.
it's just, yeah.
So we could maybe pull that and send it to y'all, just to say, here's what it would be if you hadn't done the exemption, here's what, you know, the international community says is good for this. And we can obviously adapt off of it. Right now, we don't have anything on the residential side.
Correct.
So I think that might be something we could, if we don't send it to you, we'll have it for you Tuesday, just to look at and say, here's what, if you wanted to, here's kind of that baseline, which you can go above or below it. You could limit it to shared walls, and you could get into square footage. You know, I think that's kind of where we start. So maybe a little bit more information we could bring you on Tuesday about what did we exempt us out of? Let's look at that. And then say, all right, go try to figure out what can work in this parameter. And we can talk to Roy. We can kind of figure out what could we bring you.
I'd like to go there. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think the city of Kingston Springs went through this a couple of years ago, so that might be a good source. It was retroactive, so buildings that did not have it had to retrofit. So.
I don't know as though I would be as inclined to do a retroact, just because of the burden.
So this was commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be an issue I'd have to oppose, because the retrofits, for example, the Happy building would be extremely expensive.
Retrofitting is more expensive than during it.
Yeah.
Retrofit, but I do think, I personally would be very hesitant on the retrofit, but I do think that moving forward for our town, I think this, because we've talked about fire hydrants, we've talked about our fire department and the limitations and challenges that they have. And I think that this would at least be a step in the right direction to alleviate some of those issues. We just got to figure out how to do it fairly and efficiently.
Are you, you two, since we're the only two here. Are y'all comfortable with the 12,000 square foot commercial that's already on the books?
I'll plead ignorance, honestly, I can't even picture what 12,000 square
Well,
foot.
and
It's like,
It's the Dollar General market.
okay, so, I mean, I would lean upon minds that have invested more than myself, not educated.
I think Dixon's are extreme, in my opinion, because you're gonna kill all your smaller C2 growth. You're gonna kill it, because we're not gonna touch anything in Dixon we're just not. We'll build elsewhere because of that, and so we don't want that.
In my mind, if that's what the national guideline says, who am I to argue with that?
Right.
So, but I still would like something, so that way if you're building a 4,000, 5,000 square foot build and you got shared walls, okay, put a residential
Well,
system.
I know Tennessee Kentucky Fire was a fairly large distributor of set up around $1.50 a foot for, so it'd be $1.50 for my, say I built 1,000 square foot, or 2,000 square foot duplex, 1,000 per side. It would be $1.50 for this 1,000 square feet and $1.50 for that 1,000 square feet. Not a huge amount of money, especially not in this area. So I'm more inclined to be in favor of the residential stuff, just because I saw what happened to that builder in Dixon on that C2 development. And I know, just from owning that package building, it's gonna be a fad. I mean, if you try to sprinkle CB, for example, you're gonna spend some, and at what point do you just, do they just go under? I mean, that's gonna be, that would be my concern there. So I agree with you on retrofit.
Two quick other points on that kind of is, keep in mind with PUDs, that the discretion, the way it works, like every single one that comes before you, y'all can have a discussion on sprinklers. I don't think we need a standing standard on PUDs, so kind of keep that off its own world. C2, would you have to have a PUD for mixed use, or could you do it in C2 by right?
Ask your question again.
So for C2, you wouldn't have to bring a PUD to have apartments above and commercial below.
No.
So we would have to figure out a standard, just that wouldn't be a PUD.
But if we stayed away from commercial altogether.
Or you could just say 12,000, you could leave it.
I would just defer that, because if that's what the national guideline.
Now, what if you had a huge commercial down below of 20,000 and, 18 apartments above, that would technically trigger it for the lower section. That wouldn't trigger it for the apartments above, is the way I understand it, so.
And I think one of the, things that I would look at is for an example, we're in this townhome phase, I guess a lot of people like townhomes, but they're all individual water meters. They're either for rent with an individual water meter or for sale with an individual water meter. So you're still gonna fall within that $1.50 a foot. One thing we do have to consider, that's gonna push our prices up of our residential structure. So when people talk about cost of living, what I would do is when I pay that $1.50 a foot, when I sell it to you, you're gonna get charged that $1.50 a foot. So that's something, because everybody wants affordable housing, it's gonna push us a little further out of that.
Well, personally, that's not a bad thing for me, because to me, that tells me that because we're only talking about new builds, that means the new builds we're gonna get are gonna be of a high caliber, so they're not gonna build it unless they're confident they can sell it, and then the ones that are gonna buy it are gonna be less likely to be,
How does it affect your homeowner's insurance? Would that help in your homeowner insurance rate?
I don't know, but I'd imagine it would.
I mean, you get a break on having an alarm system, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if that makes sense, I don't know.
I imagine it would, but I don't really know. But, yeah.
The only thing that I would ask is, as you all work through the details of this, once we have something, I would ask that it go back to Planning Commission, as much for their informational purposes as anything else. But I'd like to, let's take this back to planning and then come back to you guys.
Yeah, if y'all give us the directive to go ahead and figure something out, I think we would in that process. You're not gonna see it the next month, we gotta work through it a little bit. It's pretty, if you ever read those International Building Code books, it gets really dense really quick.
One thing I am curious about too, and this may be, I may be talking out of school, I guess they say, but like the water authority, maybe that's a question for them. If we put this requirement and we've got to add all these sprinkler systems, do you guys have the capacity to do it? Tennessee, Kentucky says it's not any more burden on your water than your home, because 9 times out of 10 it's just sitting there idle, it's not going off. So you're not really you're not sprinkling the yard. So I suspect it won't be a problem, but I'd kind of like to, I'll reach out to them just be like, hey, if we do this and we add, 100 systems with a sprinkler system, is that an issue for you guys?
Well, keep in mind where in the town. I mean, I'll use a direct example. The reason the Dollar General out there isn't bigger is because the water pressure wasn't enough. If they even had to put a sprinkler system in, they were gonna have to effectively, if I understood this right, Jeff, put in a mini water tower
I got you.
out there to have the pressure to make
I was
a
curious
commercial
how
sprinkler
that-
system
yeah.
work, and apparently, that's not cheap.
No.
So-
Well, case in point, and I don't know numbers or anything like that, but if you, like the Civic Center out there, 10,300 square feet, it's sprinkled. That big metal box that sits out at the road,
Mhm.
that is part of that system. It's separate, completely separate from your water,
Gotcha.
your drinking water. And I recall it being, of course, this has now been 8-10 years ago, but I recall it being an area of concern just looking at the cost at that time.
I got
I
you.
mean, we did it,
Right.
but it was significant.
Is this building sprinkled?
No.
No.
Yeah.
We have a long water hose that's attached. And Melody knows to come get.
I know how to do it.
Chris, yeah.
That's
So
right.
that's it.
Chris is
We
going out
feel
to
fine.
sleep.
We feel fine.
You've got to have an expired fire extinguisher somewhere in there.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
okay, so do we want to leave this on the agenda, or you want to work on it some more?
I personally would, because I mean, I think the first step is for us as a council to give the go-ahead to everybody to say, hey, we're interested in moving forward, if that's be the will of
Now,
council.
y'all gonna want some parameters from us.
Well, we're going to give you the parameters in the code that we exempted out of, and I think that's the starting point of, that's pretty good. Y'all look at just adopting that, or something like that, or say, actually, let's start from scratch. I think we need to get you a little bit more
Fair
information.
enough.
And then y'all give us a directive.
Okay.
Okay, so we leave that on the agenda. Moving forward, number 7, discuss the offer of irrevocable dedication accepting the Cherokee Drive Extension and Cherokee Court, Dillard Hills Estate, Section G, as town streets, and require a 1-year maintenance bond of $20,000.
So, Mayor, we've been approached by the developer of, does everybody know where that is, out at Dillard Hills, off of White Bluff Road?
I know Dillard Hills.
Yeah, there's a Cherokee as part of an initial section, but then there was an extension to Cherokee added later. It's Cherokee Drive and Cherokee Court are the two roads, and that's the map that's at the back of your packet. So we currently have a $70-something thousand performance bond on that, the roads. So the developer has, that's majority built out, and he's approached the town about taking that as a town street. It is up to town specs. Street department has, they were there when they did the paving. All we're looking for is accepting Cherokee Drive and Cherokee Court as town streets, and then we will, we're putting a $20,000, we just rounded up, we're doing a $20,000 maintenance bond for 1 year if you agree to this. Yeah, that's it.
And just as a quick education, because we haven't had many recently.
No.
This is the process by which roads become public. So they're under a performance bond. How much was it, $200,000, something like that, probably?
This one was 70-something.
Oh.
I don't remember. Yeah.
So that requires them to do the road. They get to a point saying, hey, we're done with the road. We go out and inspect it and say, that's great, we'll take it through the planning commission, and the governing body is the only body that can actually formally accept it, so that's what you're doing. But by our ordinance, we make them do a maintenance bond just to make sure they aren't covering something up for a year, and at the end of the year, the planning commission looks at the maintenance bond and releases it. So just FYI, this is when you will be converting this road to a public road by your action, and it's only because everybody's looked at it and says, you built it to what you said you were gonna build it, to our road standards, all that, so just FYI.
And I should add, that will be on the agenda, provided we get an executed form and we get the bond in place. I mean, we're still working on that. Assuming that gets done, you'll see that Tuesday night.
Okay.
Have we looked at the road after the ice apocalypse and ensure that it's still in good order?
Yeah, I mean, that road is, I thought you was gonna ask about potholes. Yeah, we have potholes.
I'm just talking about this road because, I mean, I'm trying to be cheap here, but if it's technically not our road yet and the ice apocalypse messed it up, and you get y'all need to fix it.
Well, and that's what the maintenance is for.
Yeah.
In that period, any defect in the road has to be fixed, or we call it. You're not taking over full responsibility, it's just converting it to a public road, really, so.
Get every penny, man. There's a pothole on that road, you know.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of potholes, I think I said this the last time when we knew this weather was coming, but if you know of a pothole, if anybody can see it or anything, we can't fix it if we don't know anything about it. So, and I'm telling you, Highway 70 and Interstate, it's just a disaster. But we have potholes too, you do every year, this is just part of nature. So if you have potholes, you just need to let us know, and Jeff.
A phone call, a text, or an email,
Just
and we'll
anything.
take care of it.
I have a question regarding potholes. What happens when somebody calls?
We go fix it.
Okay. I have an acquaintance who's starting a pothole or a hole repair business. I didn't know if that's something we would want to go outside the city to handle. I think it would be a good idea because they will have a hot patch machine all the time. So it's not like, it is now, nobody has their hot machine going, so we can't fix it properly. So I don't know if it's how he would go about approaching the towns to do that. He's already got a town in Mount Juliet and a couple other businesses that's on board with him, so. And he's a local here in White Bluff.
Okay. I'm gonna leave you to check with Jeff on that, and our street department now is just, pretty much right now, just cold patch, and then it holds us until spring or summer.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, I don't see why we need to be in that business, so.
I'd love to get out of it.
Yeah.
Well, and if it's something that big, I mean, you're probably looking at needing to bid it. It probably, again, if that's something, take another jurisdiction's example, recently, this a good analogy. Their code inspection department was falling behind. They're getting more and more permits. They had one inspector, they really needed 3. So they created a fast lane where you could go hire a predetermined list of private engineer inspectors, and they could do the inspection on the home or whatever, and then bring it to that city. But you had to pay them, and it was way more expensive than going through, waiting in line for the one inspector to do it. Now, the analogy for me is that, you're going to pay less as a town doing it in-house. You just are. Now, if the town is not getting to all the potholes, I think that's when you could look at outsourcing certain things. We don't touch 70 or 47, right? I didn't think we could. So I think coming back with examples of what's not getting to is a good reason to outsource. Otherwise, I'll be candid, I've never seen an outsourcing of that cost less. But if you don't like cold patch or anything like that, I think it's worthy, but they're probably going to end up being more than $25,000, so we'd have to bid it out. And they can certainly bid on it, but I think those are the parameters we would have to look at to make sure we're checking the boxes.
There's a hole in Carrick Way, it's been patched about 7 times, and still has not been fixed. Somebody puts a shovel full of coal patch in there and drives on, and it's still a divot. Park Street is terrible. It's getting worse where the scene is.
Park Street?
we're at on Park Street.
right where it goes down the dip and then back up, there's a seam right there in the middle, and it's falling in. It's just like,
Anytime you know things like that, you don't have to wait to hear. I mean, call me, let me know, we'll get it fixed.
I have a separate question, but it is related, just for, could have asked otherwise, but since we're on the topic. Just a point of curiosity, an example in Carriageway where that development has went up, but they're about to do another one. You know, they messed up those two spots, which they fixed, kudos, cool. The question I have was, once that, I would expect them to wait to do the whole thing once they're done with the other side of the development. Are they gonna go back in that type of scenario and pave the whole road again, other than just the two patches they did, or is it just, hey, we patched the two damages and we're done?
In that particular case, we identified the,
Yeah.
the area, and they fixed it, and so that's done.
Okay, so they're not gonna go back after they're done with the other development and just do a smooth top over it? Okay, I'm just wondering.
We'll ask them to, but they won't do it.
I just asked, because I mean, they did adequately
They
fix
did.
those spots, so I'm not
They did.
fussing, I'm just
That's
wondering what that, but obviously you can tell there was because you have one side of the road that's brand new, the other side
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
not.
it's
I'm like,
different.
okay, are they gonna make this one seamless thing, or is it just gonna be this way?
I saw what they were gonna fix until the city stepped in.
Well, that's true. I mean, they're gonna do the least they think they have to do.
Yeah, we got a whole
But
thing.
they worked with us well.
Okay. That was my curiosity, is are they gonna make it one seamless road portion, or if they're just gonna leave just that patch in the way?
So I mentioned,
Go ahead,
I'm
go
sorry.
on. No.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I mentioned, how to let the town know if you have a pothole, then we'll get it fixed. But Facebook is not a way. So.
But interesting to know, so, because again, I'm new to that type of thing and new bills in that regard, so I just don't know how much is expected of them in that regard.
Is there a department that picks up garbage?
A department, we have a company that picks up trash.
No, not that. I'm talking about crap that's thrown on the side of the road.
Oh, you're talking about litter?
Litter, I'm sorry, yes.
In the past, we've worked with with Charlotte, with the inmates, and they sometimes will come out and do that.
Well, for a while, there were different organizations that would do the Adopt a Highway.
Right.
We used to have that some, but
Well,
haven't seen that in a while.
these are not highways, they're just,
Yeah, yeah. Just hope interested citizens taking up pride and saying.
Yeah,
"We're
I
doing
grew up, my
good,"
dad would
but-
put me in a trailer on a four-wheeler, we'd drive around the day.
I mean, I do that from time to time.
Yeah,
I'm just-
yeah.
I've seen a bunch of it lately.
Yeah,
It's not good.
People are going back to throwing their trash out the window.
I know. Well, I think, my daughter lives up here on the corner, and she lives on the corner of Jordan Street in Charlotte. She has to go out about once every 2 or 3 weeks, especially more in the summer than now, and pick up all the bottles and cans out of her, that they're thrown into shrubs. I mean, it's,
I'll
yeah.
make money on the cans.
You have one of those little machines that crushes the cans for you and goes in the bag, because it saves on space.
Who cares? I got garbage bags. I just take it to Bordeaux.
Yeah. Your board meeting 6:45?
Parks and recreation, anything, this might be a good time, what I was gonna say a minute ago, we'll talk about potholes. This might be a good time, we gotta start thinking, guys, we're gonna have to do some paving here. Pick out a couple of the worst streets, don't know that we can do it this year or not. I don't know exactly what we think we might have after we make the payment left in State Street Aid Fund. Sometime we'll have enough that we can pick out a couple of streets and do the worst. We did Hatley Street and something else. But, there are some streets that we realize need to be just paved completely. Been on time, but, so that's something that we need to be thinking about, just kind of look at it, next budget, see if we can do anything, what we need to do. Okay, Parks and Recreation, the only thing I've got to tell you is I'm real proud. Principal Jan Ford sent me a text and told me that our middle school Colonel boys, I've heard they were really, really a good basketball team. They have won all kinds of championships in their area that they can. They've won the, regional, they've won the season, and now tonight, actually, in fact, they're probably looking at me, they should be almost finished. They're playing in Lincoln County on, what you call sectionals. If they win there, they go to the state in Murfreesboro. That's our middle school. So we will honor them one way or another in one of our council meetings there, and Joyce reports there. So I'm real proud of that. Any old business? New business? Adjournment. Oh, yeah, town council meeting, beer board meeting at 6:45, next Tuesday night. You want to meet with me for a few minutes, or have you got time? Yeah, you. You can tap on, you got time?